and she's here to tell us about what this weekend meant to Nashville and the Predators.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. Gil Martin, glad to be with you today, and thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Right now, it's my pleasure to welcome back to the show from Locked On Predators, Ann Kimmel. Ann, how are you?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I am great. It's always good to have you back here, and what a big weekend for the city of Nashville. You were at the game. First of all, just the atmosphere. Try to give our listeners, paint a picture of what the atmosphere was like and what this event meant for the city of Nashville and the Preds.
Yeah, this really was incredible, and I hope I can do the experience justice. It was packed. The stadium was packed. Nissan Stadium was filled. And I will say congrats to Tampa Bay Lightning, not only on the win, but also your fans showed up for you. So we had some Tampa Bay fans in Nissan Stadium with Nashville Predators fans. This was just a phenomenal event put on by the city of Nashville. Before the game, they had tailgates going on all day at Nissan Stadium, some pretty interesting tailgates going on at Nissan Stadium. There were concerts, there were bars open. The Stanley Cup was in Nashville, not the way we wanted it in Nashville, but it was here nonetheless. And so there were tons of family activities going on before the game. When the game started, I think Nashville put on just an incredible show. Before the game, both teams actually warmed up out in front of the stands. So I think that was just kind of a fun treat for the players and also for the fans to get to see them warming up. The game itself was incredible. There was lights, pyrotechnics, we had fireworks. We also had Paul McCann, who is our normal announcer, which kind of gave it a nice feel to sort of have that homey voice we're used to hearing. But it was just an incredible atmosphere. They had live music during every television time out. We had concerts by Miranda Lambert and Dirk Bentley, both huge Predators fans. So for Nashville, this was just a really great chance to show once again, we love to party, and we love to party when it comes to hockey.
Yeah, just a great showing and sort of a showcase of Music City and all that's associated with it. As far as the game went, you mentioned, close game, disappointing end for the Preds. Penalties seem to really hurt them in this one.
This is something that Nashville has really been struggling with this last little stretch. This is a team that can play a complete game when they are disciplined. And because they play a physical game, you sort of have to watch that fine line between playing a physical, smart game and committing penalties. And unfortunately, last night, penalties got the better end of Nashville. And with a team like Tampa Bay, they're going to capitalize on any weakness that they can find. And they did in this game. And ultimately, penalties really cost the Predators what could have been a valuable 2 points in the Central Division.
Yeah, that race is going down to the wire. And I wanted to ask you a little bit about Filip Forsberg. I mean, his name seems to keep coming up at the trade deadline about teams being interested in him. What are you hearing, and what is your take as to, is he on the market, and what do the Preds want in return if he is?
Yeah, Filip Forsberg is the hot topic here in Nashville and in some other hockey cities as well. There was a report this week that general manager David Poile was actively shopping Filip Forsberg to some teams. But want to kind of clarify that for people who may not be as familiar with David Poile. David Poile is somebody who wants to know the value of his team at any time, and especially coming up to the trade deadline. So when we hear actively shopping, we think he is looking to trade Filip Forsberg, and I don't think that's the case. I think David Poile wants to know the market value of Filip Forsberg because David Poile wants to sign him. I don't think there's any question that the Nashville Predators want to keep Filip Forsberg here. I think it's a question of coming to an agreement on a number. I think that they will do that. I would be very surprised if we lost Filip Forsberg before March 21st. And I do think so much about what the Preds are planning on doing when it comes to the trade deadline hinges on signing Filip Forsberg.
Wanted to ask you a little bit about the power play and two players in particular, Roman Josi, who, 23 of his 53 points have come with the man advantage, and then Matt Duchene, who leads the team with 10 power play goals.
Yeah, the power play has been a problem for Nashville in previous seasons. It's been something that they have really struggled with. But for some reason, it has kicked in this year. They've made some system adjustments, but I also think the personnel has made a huge difference. And like you said, two key components of that, Roman Josi and Matt Duchene. Matt Duchene is really having himself a year. It's been a struggle in Nashville for him. He hasn't sort of produced like people would have wanted for the contract that they paid for him. He's making up for that this year, and he's especially doing that on the man advantage. They're doing a much better job moving the puck, which makes a big difference. And with Roman Josi quarterbacking that, good things happen. He's able to find lanes, shooting lanes, I think better than almost anybody else on the Nashville Predators team, especially on the man advantage. And that's been paying off for us.
And if Filip Forsberg is not necessarily going to be moved, trade deadline now about 3 weeks away, what do you see David Poile looking to add or looking to do on trade deadline day?
There's a little bit of talk about perhaps adding some defensive muscle. The Nashville Predators have a pretty solid defensive situation when everybody's healthy, and that's the problem. We're missing last night's game. We missed Mark Borowiecki, who is a third pairing defenseman for us, but he is also critical on things like the penalty kill. And so that was kind of a big loss. And I think shoring up the defense is something that David Poile is going to look to the market and see what's available for that. The other thing that I think he may look for is some second line, perhaps scoring. And if he would take my call, I would strongly recommend Phil Kessel for that, but we'll see who he is looking for. But I think he's definitely looking around to see what's available. I think he is pleased with where the Predators are, and I think everybody in Nashville feels like this is a team that has the potential to make a deeper playoff run than they have the last few years. So I think there's going to be some activity closer to March 21st.
Last question before we let you go. Any concerns about UC Saros playing, starting 44 games already this year, that his workload may be a little too heavy?
I don't know that that concern is huge here in Nashville. I think he's shown that he can manage that. I do think there are conversations going on about whether David Rittich is the backup. Would UC Saros down the line need a little bit more of a break than what he's gotten in the first half of the season? So that's something to keep your eye on as well. But as far as confidence in Saros and his ability to play out the second important half of this season, I think we expect to see him in net quite a bit.
And why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers where they can see the podcast and where they can follow you on social media?
So you can find Locked On Predators on Twitter at LO_Predators. And you can find me on Twitter at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
All right. Ann Kimmel, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much.